Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as the forces of East Waiting Room defeat the upstart newcomer to the island. KOTT news crews were grinding Genesis together, having been apart during the unique event last weekend. Special thanks to Citizen of the Week Ambassador Devin for assisting our efforts. Turning to the weather, and it's looking like a perfectly normal morning all day long until evening coastal swells will induce a 25% chance of invasion along the shorelines. 4 submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPGO. Remember, if it isn't LARPGO, it's cardboard. First up, the Syndicate forces of Stronghold assault the Covenant forces of Hammer for control of the eastern Restless Shore. Stronghold return once again to invoke their right of rematch against the Zealots who deposed them 2 weeks ago. Hammer has now taken and held the keep once each from Stronghold so far. From here on, it's up to them to bring order to the anarchy in the archipelago. Then, the Covenant forces of the K assail the Syndicate forces of some buddies for control of First Light and the flow of the spice. The newcomers of the K make their move and attempt to seize control of the spice markets of First Light, but they shouldn't discount the power of friendship, as a group of some buddies stand together and fight for what's theirs. Meanwhile, the Syndicate forces of Washed Millennials challenge the Marauders of Dropouts for their championship title and the right to rule over Everfall. Former Great House Washed Millennials step into the ring and go for the knockout against the current heavyweight champs. The Dropouts are well rested after having had almost an entire week off and are ready to defend their championship belt once again. In the nightcap, the Covenant forces of Hero mug the Marauders of Dropouts for control of the financial capital of Windsward. Hero have been making progress in wars around the island and have continued to recruit. Perhaps tonight is the night they break in. For Dropouts, they seem content to maintain control of the central corridor, defending it from attackers in the late night time slot. We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as all 4 great houses hold the line and defend their respective regions. Quickly to the weather, and it's going to be a beautiful morning all day long with only one late night invasion popping up in Brightwood. 2 roster submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPGO. Remember, if it isn't LARPGO, it's cardboard. First up, the Covenant forces of Hammer assault the Syndicate forces of Secrets for control of the medicinal hot springs of the resort destination of Ebonscale. The Great House of Hammer travel all the way from Restless Shore to pick a fight with the regional onsen operators. For the forces of Secrets, this surprise attack seems to have been staged from Monarch's Bluff, but they will deal with that after this. Then, the Covenant forces of Young Money attack the Marauders of Ex-Hooded Outcasts for control of the northernmost region of Morningdale. The forces of Young Money return to the scene, rebranded and ready to rumble in the rain. For Ex-Hooded Outcast members, reclaiming the region to harvest the crops planted by the instigators 97 days ago has motivated them to see it through to harvest. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the forces of Hammer find a way in the final moments to capture the flag and the region of Ebonscale. KOTT news crews were on the scene conducting interviews when a small crowd of mercenaries became unruly in front of City Hall.
What going on over here, man? I'm here to collect, bruh.
Mystical, bro. Where's that paycheck, dog? Yeah, he's not paying us, bro. You better come up here, bro. Interview this kid. He's a scammer. He was saying 10K per player. Hey, Priest, bro, get your paycheck, bro. Get your paycheck, bro. Mystical being cheap right now. That man's making $1 million a week.
Listen, you over here promising some money. Hey, Mystical, give me my money, bro.
Where's that money, bro?
Mystical, why you don't know me on Discord, bro? Give me my money, dog.
We spoke with Governor Nicholas about these allegations. Congratulations on your victory tonight. A tight fight all the way until the end. In the final moments, you finally broke through against Secrets. Care to take us through it?
Yeah, we broke through right at the end. They put up one hell of a fight throughout the entire war. We captured the first 3 flags relatively fast. But once we were 10 minutes left on the clock, we didn't panic, but we knew that they were there to fight us, to say the least. They were there. They meant business, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
All right, and speaking of business, there are some mercenarial forces outside of City Hall asking to conduct business with you, claiming that they have not been paid. Are there any discrepancies you'd like to address?
Yeah, we don't mind paying out for mercenaries at all whatsoever, especially now that we have Eben. We don't mind paying mercenaries. When we put the roster together to attack Eben's scale over the last 48 hours, we were just asking people to help. There were no promises made of payouts, but now that we have Eben and Eben profitable territory, all future wars, if you're a mercenary, I have no issue payouts. Yeah.
Turning to the weather, and after another beautiful morning of sunshine all day long, southern El Niños will induce invasion swells into the central corridor, so plan your travel accordingly. 4 rosters submitted for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPCO. Remember, if it isn't LARPCO, it's cardboard. Starting things off, the Syndicate forces of Juice's Secret Foundation contest the Covenant forces of Yap Yap for control of the crown of the Western Monarch's Bluff. Frustrated by Covenant forces using the bluff as a staging ground for assault, Justice's Secret Foundation have come for the crown. The forces of Yap Yap have turned away 2 marauding forces from their bluff so far. How will they deal with members of the Syndicate? Then, the Marauders of Civil Riot challenge the Covenant forces of Exiled for control of the secondary oil reserves of Cutlass Keys. Civil Riot return to the Southern Peninsula in their attempt to reclaim their lost throne. Exiled make their first defense of the region since acquiring it nearly a week ago. Will all this rest make them rusty? Meanwhile, the Syndicate forces of Sage Company assail the Marauders of Landlord for control of the master fishing port town of Reekwater. The newcomers of Sage Company make their first attempt to seize land by adversely possessing the Reekwater Keep. But the landlords of Reekwater know exactly what to do when someone tries to squat in their territory. It's sure to be a long fight. In the late time slot, the Syndicate forces of Battlesnakes assault the Covenant forces of Lost Templar for control of the primary oil reserves of Weaver's Fin. Battlesnakes return for their second attempt to secure land after failing against the Landloods of Monarch's Bluff last month. Have they improved their offense? Lost Templar have maintained control of the Peat Moss-filled Fin for just over a month, but suspiciously have not fought in the last 2 weeks. What machinations have they set afoot? We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night, as all 4 great houses hold the line and defend their sovereignty. Of note in Weaver's Fin, a 7-minute fight on the final flag inside the fort. We spoke with Lost Templar Governor about the fight. Tough hold out there tonight, fighting on the flag for well over 7 minutes. Would you care to take us through it?
Yeah, sure. We decided to throw C point off the rip. We had a little bit of trouble with Battlesnakes and their supporters getting in our back line, so they quickly got B as well. We did a much better job holding on A point, dipping toes, They eventually got that, and then we defended fort for about 7 minutes, I think. After the start, I was a little bit worried, but we bounced back. It was good.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to a tournament?
Yeah, for sure. I just want to say GG to Battle Snakes and their supporters, and a huge shout out to our crew who fought in the war and our supporters as well. Thank you very much.
Turning to the weather, and if you can believe it, another beautiful day of sunshine all day long until late evening cold fronts will bring a 20% chance of invasion. Only one request for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard? Tonight, the Covenant forces of Young Money assault the Marauders of East Waiting Room for control of the bear-infested deep forests of Brightwood. Young Money rub on their Dr. Bombast Despair urine-infused bear repellent and march into the woods, looking for a fight. For East Waiting Room, they've held the Central Corridor access to the Northern Badlands for 2 months now, apparently content in their ambitions for the island. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as the forces of East Waiting Room maintained control of the bear-infested deep forests of Brightwood. No change in the weather of Eternum today either, as the sun shines all day long once again, until western typhoons will push invasions along the southern peninsula. 5 submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. First up, the Syndicate forces of Searing Void assault the Covenant forces of Hammer for control of the uncontrollable Restless Shore. Searing Void sense an opportunity to capture the archipelago, while Hammer forces are committed in Ebonscale. The forces of Hammer have informed this reporter that tonight's defense of the fort will be available for open signups, so get out there and get your name on the list. Then, the Covenant forces of Booty Clapital assail the Syndicate forces of East Sindoff Team for control of First Light and the flow of the spice. Booty Clapital return once again for the abundant spices of First Light. Have they improved since last month? East Sindoff Team have held the region longer than any other current Great House, marking them as the most tenured ongoing Great House. Meanwhile, the Covenant forces of Lost Templar challenge the Marauders of Dropouts for their championship title and the right to rule over Everfall. From their staging ground east in Weaver's Fen, the forces of Lost Templar step into the ring to challenge the champs. Dropouts make their 3rd defense of their championship belt, but their 1st defense against a sitting Great House. I hope to be back from work for this one. In one nightcap matchup, the Covenant forces of Gilded Outlaws rob the Marauders of Dropouts and attempt to steal the financial capital of Windsward. Gilded Outlaws return to the scene, having tasted the Great House experience, and they want to drink some more. The forces of Dropouts may be tired from last night's efforts in Brightwood, but that shouldn't impact their efforts to keep the vault secure. In the other nightcap, the Syndicate forces of NBs attack the Covenant forces of Lost Templar in their attempt to secure the primary oil reserves of Weaver's Fen. Newcomer NBs make their first official attempt to secure land, and they've set their eyes on the peat moss fields of the Fen. Lost Templar have been protecting the denizens of the Fen for over a month now, reinforcing their claim of factional first purchase rights. We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night, as all 5 great houses hold the line and prove what makes them so great. KOTT news crews were in First Light after the fight and caught up with one of the participants. Congratulations on your victory tonight. Went all the way to the fort here. Great hold.
the only Syndicate forces remaining on the island. How do you feel about your defense tonight as a mercenary?
Oh, it was pretty good. They were able to take down the first 3 points pretty good. And we were able to hold it out in the fort. All out. Great fight on both sides. GG's, well done.
How deeply tied are you to the people here in First Light still?
Well, we're not necessarily caring about it. But again, if you want to take it, you're going to have to fight for it. So we will be defending it with all our heart and passion when fighting.
Turning to the weather, and it's going to be another perfect morning all day long, full of sunshine and hope, until mid-evening cold fronts from the north will cause a 10% chance of invasions. 3 roster submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPGO. Remember, if it isn't LARPGO, it's cardboard. Starting things off, the Syndicate forces of Here Be Mutineers assault the Covenant forces of Hammer for control of the bamboo forest preserves and medicinal hot springs of Ebonscale. The forces of Here Be Mutineers switched their allegiance and joined the Syndicate in their efforts to understand the island. For Hammer, their first defense of the hamlet after securing it earlier this week. They also defended Restless Shore last night. Will fatigue be a factor? Then, the Syndicate forces of Battlesnakes assail the Marauders of Landlords for control of the master fishing port town of Reekwater. The forces of Battlesnakes have been trying their hand in combat around the island's various regions, and tonight they go for Reekwater. The Landlords have maintained control of the fishing hamlet for nearly 5 weeks, keeping the infrastructure efficient and taxes lean. In the nightcap, the Covenant forces of the KOTT attack the Marauders of Ex-Hooded Outcasts for control of the northernmost region of Morningdale. The KOTT make their second claim on a region since joining the Covenant. Has the Spark called them to the northern Death Wall? Ex-Hooded Outcast members continue to improve the rainwater and spring collection canal project that defines the hamlet, but they always have time to defend the keep. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the Syndicate forces of Battlesnakes secure the master fishing port town of Reekwater. KOTT news crews were on the scene and spoke with Battlesnake's leadership after their war. Well, I'm here with senior leadership in Reekwater, Syndicate forces having overcome the landlords of the Marauders. After several attempts to secure land on the island, you were successful here today. Ponce, take us through it. How'd it go out there tonight?
Well, it went pretty handy for the A, B, and C point ticks, and then it took a little bit of time in the fort, but eventually our plan worked and we got it.
Excellent. Congratulations. And Governor, let me turn to you. Now that you've secured the hamlet, do you have any intentions to increase or lower the taxes or establish any type of infrastructure here?
Listen, we all know those guilds who up the taxes to 25%, and no one wants to be like them. They're losers, all right? Reekwater, we're going to keep things low, keep things for the people. That's what we're about, all right?
Reekwater's for the people.
You heard it here first, folks. The Battlesnakes are here for the people, so come on down to Reekwater and support your Syndicate faction members with their town boards to improve the hamlet.
I got one more thing to say, and that is...
In other news, the forces of Dawnguard have increased the tax rates of all services throughout the Central Corridor. This arrangement extends to their Covenant partners in Cutlass Keys. This adjustment is believed to be in response to last night's invasion results, which decimated the hamlet of Brightwood. KOTT news crews spoke with a participant from that invasion.
Hey John, you know how it was purple in the beginning?
Yes?
I decided to go undercover for the news. I swapped green, infiltrated the top companies, started warlogging, and finally gained their trust. Raising up the taxes, not listening to people, and the people are throwing their invasion. But John, let me tell you who's right in this entire scenario. Company that gives me the most money.
I will let the people know that your mercenary services are available for the right price.
I'm not a mercenary, I'm a rat, John.
KOTT News will bring you more on this story as it develops. Turning to the weather, and it's going to be a mostly sunny day once again until southern typhoons will push invasions into the central corridor, giving the citizens another reason to avoid the area. 2 roster submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPCO. Remember, if it isn't LARPCO, it's cardboard. Up first, the Syndicate forces of Battlesnakes challenge the Covenant forces of Hero for the title of Monarchs of the Western Bluff. Battlesnakes are feeling the momentum after their first victory in Reekwater last night, and they're hoping to carry that over onto the Bluff. The forces of Hero officially become a great house by way of artful negotiation, and they get to celebrate by defending it against another great house. Then, the Marauders of the Resurgent assail the Covenant forces of Yellow DG for control of the secondary oil reserves of Cutlass Keys. The Resurgent make their third attempt to secure land on the island, this time shifting their attention farthest south to the Keys. The intentions of Yellow DG are unknown at this time, as the impact of last night's events may leave them unprepared for tonight's defense. We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News.